Hi, my name is Gabby, also known as Mrs. Pigeon. Happy Halloweek, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video so far and that you're excited for this one. As you can already tell, I am going to give you some more Halloweeny movie recommendations. So the first movie I want to talk about in this list is It Chapter 2 from this year. I did talk about the first chapter last year and how much I really enjoyed it despite being terrified of clowns. I'm in the process of reading Stephen King's It. I haven't read any of it for a while, but I did start it and I've enjoyed it so far, and it was so nice to already see parts of the book in this second chapter. So chapter 2 follows the Losers Club as adults after they return to Derry 27 years on to face Pennywise once again. And I just have to take a moment to fangirl over how good the casting is for the adults of the Loser Club, especially Ben, Stan and Eddie. I just think, how do you have actors that look so alike who aren't related? And I love how each of the adult actors really mimic the child actors, like facial expressions and mannerisms. Also James McAvoy and Bill Hader. What I also like is how there are flashbacks to the Losers Club as kids and like other encounters with Pennywise that we didn't see in the first film, which was really cool, especially Richie's one. I enjoyed chapter 2 way more than chapter 1 actually. I just think they really upped the fear factor and the gore factor, and that's exactly what you want in a horror movie. I'm not gonna lie, and I hope this isn't a spoiler, but there is a sort of heartbreak to it. I cried, and I could hear in the cinema a lot of other people crying. Some of my friends cried as well. So yeah, that's the warning I will give, that it's gory and it's heartbreaking, but it's still incredible. Literally, it's still incredible. So the only film I can see appropriate to follow it with on this list is It Follows. That was so lame. It Follows is a very well made, low budget independent film, and the premise is quite unusual actually. I suppose it's not that much more unusual than a clown that eats kids, but it's about an STD that consists of an evil shape-shifting entity that follows the person who has the STD around until they pass it on to somebody else or they die. So the main protagonist of this film is kind of groomed into sleeping with this person who has this STD, and she ends up having it herself. And yeah, this entity just consistently follows her around, and it takes form of different things, and only the person who currently has the STD can see the creature following them. Nobody else can see it. They can feel it, they can see what it's doing to that person, but they can't actually see the creature itself. And what I really love about It Follows, which really goes against the typical horror cliche, is that the protagonist's friends believe her when she says there's something following her, and they actually try and help her out and fight against this thing they can't even see. So that's really cool. It is definitely a very, very spoopy film. I mean, I think everybody has a slight fear of being followed by something, and the fact that it could take form of someone you know is even creepier. The next film I want to talk about also came out this year, and it's Us. Us is another horror movie that was written and directed by Jordan Peele, who also did Get Out, so you know it's gonna be good. It's about a family of 4 that take a nice little holiday to their lodge and get attacked by their doppelgangers. It's very heavily inspired by, well, no, it's not inspired by, it literally references to the Hands Across America movement, which was the charity event to fight against homelessness in 1986, I believe. I thought it was really well written. I prefer it much more to Get Out, definitely. Get Out was still a really good film, don't get me wrong, but I just really liked this one much more. This one was definitely more horror. There's not much more I can really say without revealing the ending or like any like really good moments, but it's definitely very gory. Peele's Get Out was all about like racism and how everyone reacts to race. And this one's definitely more about social class. So I do like that he has these sort of political themes to them, to his movies. It's got very unusual noises throughout the film, and voices, but it's very, very good. And I liked the ending quite a bit as well. Next up is a bit of an older movie, which is Orphan, which came out in 2009. Orphan is a movie about a family that decide to adopt a little girl called Esther after they sadly had a stillbirth. What I love about this film is that for the most of the beginning, you kind of just see it as a really sort of sweet, endearing film about a family that adopt a I believe, Russian girl, and it's very charming, and Esther's very charming to begin with. But there's definitely something wrong with Esther. I can't really say much more because I don't want to ruin any of the story for anybody who wants to watch it. But yeah, I love this film so much. I'm kind of annoyed I haven't spoken about it sooner because I really, this is definitely one of my favourite horror films. The actress that plays Esther is so fantastic in her role. She's incredible. I can't reveal too much more, which is a problem with horror films, because a lot of horror films have like really creepy twists or really creepy moments that you shouldn't spoil for everyone else. But I definitely think you should watch it. By the way, I have the trailers for each of the movies in the description, so if you do want to watch the trailers, because YouTube's a bit like, don't put that in your video, they will be down there for you, so you can see a little bit more and know a bit more about the film, because I'm not that articulate. The next film is from 2018 and it is Hereditary. Hereditary is a very weird a very weird film, I'd say, from start to finish. It's very unique, and again, I can't say too much about it because even the trailer is very different to the film. It's a bit of a surprise when you actually watch the film, and I don't want to ruin that surprise for any of you who actually watched the movie. So this very dysfunctional family have faced a couple of quite serious tragedies within the family, and the reasons and the causes behind these tragedies, let's just say they're not natural or normal. I don't know what else I could say, actually. I didn't really think that through. The imagery in this film is quite disturbing and there is quite a bit of gore in it, so I wouldn't say it's for the squeamish, but it's definitely very good. The next film I want to talk about, I watched very recently. It came out this year and it's on Netflix, which is In the Tall Grass. And In the Tall Grass is another another Stephen King movie. And the main protagonists are a cute brother and sister duo that are going on a trip together. They stop by this field of very tall grass and they hear a little kid just shouting for help, and being the good people they are, they go and investigate. And they shouldn't have. It's very unusual, this film. The grass situation, it's very unusual. I don't think I've ever wanted to mow grass so much in my life. So the grass messes with time and distance. So for example, the brother and sister lose each other in the grass like straight away because, like I said, distance is meddled with. And so they come up with a very clever idea of both jumping at the same time to see each other. And when they jump and see each other, they're only a few meters away from each other. But when they jump again, they are really far apart, even though they didn't move. And they can still hear each other really well. It's very Stephen King, you know. Stephen King really pushes boundaries and also comes up with very unusual premises. It's very clever, and like the messiness of the times and the distance makes you feel like you are in the grass as well, because you're like, wait, what? Where are you? When did this happen? Where are they? It plonks you within the blades and you feel like you too are trapped. There are some really gross and disturbing moments, which I think if you're quite easily upset by stuff, I don't think you'd like. But if you're not like that and you really like Stephen King's work, or you just like movies that are gross and weird and will get you really thinking about what you just watched, then I would recommend this film. The next movie I want to talk about on this list is the oldest one on this list, which is also by Stephen King, which is Misery. Misery came out in 1990 at the same time as the It miniseries with Tim Curry, also by Stephen King. Just a little side fact, a bit of side goss for you all. So Misery is about an author named Paul Sheldon who wrote books about the fictional character Misery Chastain. At the beginning of the film, Paul gets into a car accident and gets rescued by his #1 fan, Annie Wilkes, and she looks after him for a while as it's too snowy to go to the hospital and the phone lines are dead. That sounds like a nice normal situation, doesn't it? Wrong. Annie is actually a stan. And not the oh, I stan this kind of stan. No, I mean stan. And she basically kidnaps Paul and forces him to write a new book for Misery, which brings Misery back to life. The entire film is very anxiety inducing because you're sort of sitting there waiting for Paul to try and make his escape, wondering when Annie's gonna just walk in. It is very good. It keeps you on your toes, definitely. Speaking of toes, there's a very gross moment in the film. Not so much gory, but just more sort of. The whole vibe and atmosphere of the film is so eerie that, like, once again, you do feel like you're there, like in his shoes, like you're kind of in the room with him, like, oh, Paul, we got to get out. And Annie Wilkes is played by Kathy Bates, and if you're a fan of American Horror Story, then you'll know that's a good casting. The next movie I want to talk about is probably the most unusual one on the list, not because of the story, but because of just how it was directed, I suppose. This is the Belko Experiment, which came out in 2016. Even the sort of backstory of this film is already very strange. So all these characters in this movie work for the Belko Industries, and to be able to work there you need to have a microchip thing in the back of your head for security and safety reasons, apparently. All these people turn up to work, just a normal day at the office, and then all of a sudden the building goes on lockdown. Wi-Fi and phone lines disconnected, the windows and doors, they become barricaded by super thick, indestructible steel shutters, and there's a voiceover that comes out and it's like, oh hi everyone, you're all gonna die. Okay, it doesn't quite say that. It basically says 80 of you are here and 79 of you are gonna die. To sum it up in a very short sentence, the Belko Experiment is if the Hunger Games took part in an office building. I work in an office, you know, I can't imagine walking into my office and thinking, well, I'm gonna have to kill all of y'all. This voiceover is very strange. Like, at one point it comes up and it's like, okay, well, I need 30 of you to die or I'm gonna kill 60 of you. And do you know how they kill you? That cheeky old macro chip I told you about. It's an explosive. As you could imagine, a lot of people die in this film. So if you're a bit of a death lover when it comes to hopefully just horror stuff, then this film will definitely be for you. I wish they used more office supplies in the killings, because, I mean, it would have been cool to use someone use a paper shredder, you know, or just like a photocopier, just slam it on someone. Like, oh, God, I sound mental. I'm gonna get fired. You know, when you watch a horror film, you do kind of wanna see some very unusual ways people die. Some inventive ways. Don't get me wrong, it does happen, but I wish it happened more. The next film I want to talk about came out in 2013, and it's another one that I really like, and I'm surprised I haven't mentioned it sooner, and it's Mama. So Mama begins with a man named Jeffrey who goes on a killing spree and then takes his 2 young daughters to a lodge and plans to kill them and then himself. America. However, there's this very strange, mysterious figure that saves the young girls, Victoria and Lily, from their father, and then kills their father. And then she takes them under her wing and looks after them in this abandoned lodge in the best way that a messed up entity can. Jeffrey's twin brother Lucas arranges a rescue party to find Lily and Victoria, and they're found! And Lucas and his girlfriend Annabelle end up signing some papers and end up looking after the girls themselves. And unbeknownst to Lucas and Annabelle, they took the girls in, but they also invited Mama. It's a very creepy film. There's a lot of CGI in it. I really like the effects and the visuals in this movie. They're very like juttery, you know, and that sort of movement's very like spider-like, and it's like creepy crawlies. The way they move is abnormally quick, and that's sort of what Mama does. Not all horror movies have a good backstory behind the villain in it, and I kind of like the backstory of Mama. It's very tragic, kind of like with The Ring or The Grudge. You kind of feel a little bit sorry for the entity. That was my mum laughing outside, and that sounded really creepy. Especially as I'm talking about Mama. Things go down when Mama's in the house. I'm talking about the movie now. And the last thing I want to talk about isn't actually a movie. Oops, I clickbaited y'all. It's a Netflix horror series called The Haunting of Hill House, which came out last year. I talked about this in one of my videos either early this year or last year, and I said about how I loved this series so much, and I stand by that. So The Haunting of Hill House is a series which is very supernatural based, but it's also got a lot of psychologicalness to it. Oh my god. And now there's a haunting of my house. So the story is, there is a lovely family who move into a really huge, crazy big, spooky house, and they plan on renovating it. And there's the mother, father, and their 5 children. And the story follows the kids as kids, and it also follows them as adults. And it switches between time. The series is very confusing at first because of the flashbacks and the time jumps, but also because it tells the story in each character's perspectives. And you see like overlaps of moments, and they don't make sense at first, but then as you watch each episode on, it does make sense. And it's so well put together. I'm still wowed by it a year on. I'm just sitting here fangirling at this point. I think it's my favourite thing I'm talking about on this list, actually. But again, I don't want to reveal too much, but it's a very unusual take on horror, and I loved it, as you could probably tell. But yeah, that's the last thing I suggest you watch. Hopefully you guys like this horror movie list. If you have seen any of them, hopefully you agree that there's a good recommendation and stuff. But if not, like I said, the trailers are in the description, so if you wanted to check them out because my explanations are naff, then yeah, feel free to. And hopefully with my help, or even without, you all have a very fun and spooky Halloween. You thought I was going to scare you again, didn't you? Like the last 2 days. Don't be silly. I don't do it 3 times in a row. But who's that behind you?